had a nice holiday. Hi, Scott.
Hey, everybody.
We'll get started in a second. Hi, Barbara.
Hello. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Have other regional folks getting on?
I didn't have anybody who said they couldn't come, so hopefully we'll have some join us a little later.
Okie dokie. All right, so it's 12:03. I know we want to go ahead and get started. Hopefully more of the regional folks will join the call, but thank you for joining the call today of this webinar. I know this is our third session that we've hosted to get everyone started. I'm going to take an opportunity to say happy Thursday, as Barbara mentioned as well. I hope you had a nice holiday, had some time to really reflect and really engage with family and friends, so that you can replenish and get back out there and help do this great work that we're doing across the state. So I want to thank you all for being here for this session. To those who are leading the institute or serving as the institution-led partners, and then those that are helping to support the efforts that we're doing today. It is my privilege to introduce today our illustrious leader at the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia. And I would say he is one of the biggest advocates for this work, and one who is truly invested in student success and ensuring that every student, and I want to preference every student, has an opportunity to engage in these meaningful experiences that will make them even more employable as they transition out of into the world. And so he's a big advocate for VTOP. And he is a strong supporter of the work that we're doing. Not to say that he's not a strong supporter of any other department within Chev, but he is truly committed to this work. And so I just want to take an opportunity to kind of take a step back to talk about our initial approach. I've been here with Chev for about 3 years, and the initial approach, we had a regional collaborative approach. But this new approach was really the vision for the new approach was really brought forward through our executive director here at Chev, where he wanted to make sure that he included both public and private institutions in this approach. And so I would truly say that this is a really, truly a reimagined approach. The work that you're doing will shape what we will continue to do across the state. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the Executive Director of the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia, Scott Fleming.
Thanks, Alicia. I will do my best to live up to an illustrious title. That sounds more significant than I deserve, but appreciate everyone being here, being part of this effort. And I'm in an airport at the moment, so I might have a little bit of background noise, but hopefully you can hear me okay. I've kind of, over the last couple of years, first as a member of the council and then as the agency's director, have been more and more focused on what higher education's value proposition is going forward. And I think what many of you have already concluded, and I'm getting there as well, is that higher education really is much more about preparation for whatever's next in life. But for most students, that's a career. And so, where historically we've always talked about higher education as a gateway to economic mobility, I think that is still very much true. It's as true now as it has ever been. And there's plenty of data to support that. But I think the nature of what's happening in higher education has changed a bit over the last 30 years, where instead of the signaling enterprise that it once was, where the degree is what signaled you were ready for the workforce, employers now are looking for skills. And it's not necessarily that they're looking for technical skills, they're looking for uh, a different set of skills. We've called them power skills, some call them durable skills. Yesterday, I heard someone call them human skills, which in an AI environment may make a lot of sense. What are the skills that uniquely make humans valuable in the workforce going forward? And so, for all students, and I appreciate that Alicia mentioned this, work-based learning is becoming increasingly important, or work integrated learning as it's becoming called in some places, and giving students an opportunity to participate in practical skill building exercises, whether that's a short-term micro internship or whether that's experiential learning, whether that's project-based learning individually or as a group. These are becoming more important for students as they complete their post-secondary credential and they anticipate entering the workforce. It's becoming more important for our workforce as well. And even though there is absolutely still an advantage and a benefit for higher education to create well-rounded learners and individuals who are prepared for a lifetime of learning, that concept has not gone away. It's probably is more important than ever now that we graduate students who really are prepared for continual learning throughout their lifetime. And so it begins here with the work that you are doing and with the ability to integrate work integrated learning into the experience that students are having as part of their undergraduate experience. As you'll hear a little bit later on, we are working with some groups to really try and accelerate that and give more students an opportunity to participate in programs, knowing that not every student can do a full-time paid internship, that it's great for those who can. Certainly that has great benefits, but the reality for many students is that they are already working part-time. They are already working to support their own tuition and fees, and taking time out to do a paid internship would mean leaving a job behind, and they don't have that flexibility. And so because post-secondary education is so critical to that economic mobility, we want to make sure that we are meeting students where they are and providing value to what will help them in the future. So some of the work that you'll hear about is alignment with Jobs for the Future and the continuum of work-based learning that they have. I think as we move forward in this, it's going to be important that we start to use some common definitions so that we all know what we're talking about. I think there's certainly a lot of that already, but an opportunity, I think, for the coordinating council in Virginia to help establish what we mean when we talk about work-based learning, and using some of the nation's best practices to help us do that. You'll hear more too about the work that the regions are going to do and how you can help coordinate and implement the standardization of those definitions within the regions that you serve, within the institutions that you're partnering with, and how we begin to have a much more standardized approach to work-based or work integrated learning in Virginia. The institution-led model, this has been part of our work, and Dr. Bazemore has done this from the outset, really, is to incorporate these regional components. Because as we know, workforce issues, we talk about them nationally or at a state level, but they are really local community issues. And functioning effectively means that we have to be able to function effectively at that community level, at individual businesses, small businesses, mom and pop businesses, some of our larger regional employers, our statewide or even national employers, all of those jobs, all of those employees, it's a local community driven effort. And so that's why we want to be closer to the institutions, closer to the communities that you serve, and really emphasize that community approach. So what we're looking for from you is to help convene the institutions and the employers and the various stakeholders to build that sense of community, build scalable systems that reduce duplication. We want to be able to integrate the SHEV and the VTOP effort with our partners at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. As they expand their regional effort, we want to stay closely coordinated with them, and so that there's less friction between the employers who want to work with institutions of higher education and the groups like you who are helping to facilitate that. And then by using those shared definitions and metrics and making those public through reporting, we expect to have tremendous statewide impact. Virginia is already identified as a leader in this space. A lot of states, I'm actually coming back from the meeting of the education commissioners of the states, and workforce issues are one of the most frequently spoken, talked about issues here at this conference. And many states are actually trying to replicate what we're already doing. I had a number of people tell me that we're actually further ahead than many states because we actually have some definitions around what are internships and what is work-based learning. It's more for us to do, but we are in a leadership position and we want to preserve that. We want to continue to be identified as a state that is really leading this effort and can be an example nationally. So we are always interested in, and Alicia's heard me say this a number of times, we want to be good partners. We want to make sure that you guys are good partners. And as we transition from isolated programs to a statewide network, we want to maintain that sense of partnership. It's really good. You know, what does it mean to be a good partner? Can we be responsive? Can we be engaged? Can we be helpful? And understanding we have a common problem to solve or a common challenge in front of us is how do we get more students into more work integrated learning opportunities? How do we do that together? And so we'll be tracking measurable outcomes. That's part of our effort. And as you continue to make progress, we want to be able to celebrate that progress. We want to be able to point to specific examples where we can say, this is what's happening in, all the way out in Lee or Wise County, or this is what's happening up and down the Blue Ridge corridor, or maybe it's in Hampton, maybe it's, some of the traditional economic centers, but different regions have different challenges and we want to be helpful for each of those regions. And that's why this regional approach, this cooperative partnership driven approach has made the most sense for us. And so you are where rubber meets the road. You guys are in the position where you will have direct impact on the institutions and how they approach this, and you'll have direct impact on the students and how they integrate and how they engage with the opportunities that you're helping to provide. So I won't put any additional pressure on your shoulders because I think this group is already wired to perform. But to maintain that leadership status, to be able to ensure that Virginia is spoken about as a model for how to integrate work-based learning and work integrated learning into undergraduate curriculum and create those opportunities for students, we want to be able to tell that story. And the work that you do is going to be the highlight and the stories that we are able to tell. So in advance, I appreciate all the good work that you're going to do or continue doing. I know many of you have been with us for a couple of years previously, and we'll continue to do that as we move forward. So I appreciate all the work that you have done, you are doing, that you will do. We appreciate this partnership and the opportunity to work together with you for a common goal. So thank you. Really, that's the message, is thank you for everything that you're going to contribute to the lives of the students that you will impact. It's going to make such a difference for these students, and it is going to be so important for them going forward. So thank you again. I really appreciate the work that you're doing and that you will continue to do for us, and look forward to all the great things that we're going to hear about.
All right. Thank you, Scott. I know you're in the airport, so safe travels to you. We appreciate the words of encouragement and your appreciation of the work that we know that the regions are institutionally partners, rather, will be doing. And I'll turn this next phase over to Carolyn. Safe travels, Scott.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So I am really excited to introduce our next guest. I really don't think him as a guest. So I don't know if you've heard of District C yet and Teamship Virginia. So we are really blessed to have a partner with Ben Laptad. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him.
Oh, thank you so much for that kind introduction, Carolyn. And thank you all for letting me be here. I'm super excited to share more, as I know I've gotten to do some introductions with Mary, with Barbara Blake, and I'm excited to meet you, Jesse and Barb, and Amy as well. And for folks who are listening after the fact, yeah, excited to share some things with you today. I'm from District C, a nonprofit based out of North Carolina, your neighbor to the south. And we created a model called Teamship that I am excited to share about. I also want to congratulate you all on being the people who are doing this impactful work, as Scott has said. Yeah, you all are change makers in this space, and you just have, I know, so much influence over your region and the work-based learning and project-based learning opportunities that you provide. In my part of this, I would love to start by sharing a little bit about what Teamship is. I'm going to share about the Teamship Virginia outcomes, which is a pilot that was run through VTOP over this past fall. Share with you a little bit more on how to adopt Teamship and how the institutions you serve could bring this to your students, and for certain include time for questions. But as we go, feel free to stop, do the raise hand function, or just unmute, interrupt me, say, hey, Ben, shut up. I have this thing that is important for us to talk about. And so I certainly want this to be relevant to you. So to start about Teamship, we've been around since 2017. So we're not just this new organization that's popped up to do work-based learning and skill development. We've been at this for over 8 years now. Had over 1,100 experiences delivered to students, almost 700 different business partners from North Carolina and Virginia and across the country, 167 institutions and in 16 states, with special partnerships with Marymount University, who has done Teamship this past semester, ODU and Barbara Blake, who I know we're going to get to work together, or institution-led partnerships and such, and as well as Tanya Nations and UVA Wives. So just to share, like, this has been going on for a while, and I'm excited to share some of the impact that has happened. So Teamship, originally created as a combination of the words team and internship, but really it's more broadly a work-based learning or project-based learning experience where small teams of students, 3 to 4, work together to solve real problems for real businesses. Okay, and Teamship fits nicely in, if you're thinking about a continuum for work-based learning, from making students aware of different opportunities, like in career days, to exploring things and modules that I know Chev and VTOP has some amazing modules for you to where students can explore different careers through that. Then career preparation and experience. It fits nicely in this career preparation area. Shorter term applied learning experiences in this project-based learning realm. And these help set students up for success when they get to any paid internship work that they might have afterwards, and may make them even more eligible and marketable for some of those bigger opportunities down the road. So fits very nicely in this career preparation part of the continuum. And I wanted to start not just by telling you more about what Teamship is, but having you hear one of the students from the Teamship Virginia pilot share during her pitch event. So this is Brianna Velez from University of Mary Washington, who I know is one of our institution-led partners. This is during the pitch event they just had, where she's talking to the business representative, James Doe, and sharing some things and reflections about what they came up with and its impact. So I will go ahead and play a short clip of this, and would love for you to listen to some of Brianna's words about the impact of this Teamship experience on her. And I will preface this by saying that Brianna is an anthropology major and working on with other students from a variety of different majors with a business that she didn't quite expect to be working with. And yet here are some of her reflections in the humanities, working on this kind of cross-functional team in Teamship.
And to add on to that, it's such an exciting and heartwarming even thing to interact with people with different perspectives. That they could have, different majors, but they want to try out app development to create this for their community. Having their insight and having their ideas can spark something inside of you to share something like that. And, could be, so just all of us here in Teamship, all of us have different majors, and we've all came all together to present this presentation and prototype to you. And I'd never thought in a million years that I'd be like doing something like this. And that's just me from my cultural anthropology perspective. So for students in universities and colleges to participate in a project such as this, such as creating an app or helping their community, as Jessa has said, that is something that can stay with a person. It sticks with them and it pushes them to continue to figure out a way to help their community or to help themselves and the future generations of this community as well.
All right, so I will pause it there. Would welcome anyone who is listening. What stood out to you about what Brianna said about working on this cross-functional team in teamship? Anyone want to share anything that stood out to them?
Sparked ideas.
Yeah, sparking ideas. What stood out to you about that, Alicia?
Future of work is about that. You know, when you think about innovation, I think people always just default to innovation is something around a specialized major, right? But you
Mm-hmm.
don't ever really think at times that innovation could come from a liberal arts degree or so forth. Really, innovation is about the opportunity to ideate, curiosity, you know, multidisciplinary approach, communication, and really solving a
Mm-hmm.
problem. And so the fact that, you know, was so excited about the idea of just the thought of working with others from different backgrounds, different majors to help with solving the problem for this particular organization, you know, that really hits home to me because that truly is innovation. It's not always
Mm-hmm.
just being majoring in a specialized degree. It is a multidisciplinary approach of ideas and sharing
Mm-hmm.
thoughts and ideas to help solve a problem.
Absolutely. Love that, Alicia. Yeah, it's all about like especially for being a anthropology major and thinking about culture in the past, bringing that
Mhm.
perspective to the team and feeling valued for that is just super
Yeah.
exciting to hear. Barbara, I see you raise your hand. Go for it.
Well, one of the things that I just have to compliment this whole model about is accessibility. So, this virtual format, I mean, clearly we can all hear that this is just opening up so many new doors and it's meaningful, it's impactful. And, for all of us, on the front lines trying to help all kinds of different students from all kinds of different backgrounds with all kinds of different resources,
Mm-hmm.
using technology in this way, it can really be such a great game changer for people, even parents to be like, well, when am I going to do this? So I just
Mm-hmm.
love the accessibility of this model and, being able to include everyone. I just love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge. And sometimes when students have gone through, Zoom era education, sometimes they've had hard experiences because it was hard to transition to online teaching and learning. But we've been doing this for years and have the logistics down and know how to do that well, such that she still had a powerful experience that we can, bring to more students and more locations in this flexible virtual format. Thanks for calling that out, Dr. Blake. Anyone else want to share anything that you noticed from uh, her comments? All right. Well, yes, we're super excited for Brianna and her team, and so many others had experiences like that. I'll dive more into that in a little bit when we get to the data portion. But I'm curious about you all. I know you've submitted those plans for these institution-led partner grants. You've been accepted in that. When you think about talking to a student that's been afforded a career preparation opportunity due to what you all are organizing, I'm curious, what would you hope that they say? Like you heard some things from Brianna. What do you hope, due to the impact of this grant, that folks, that students specifically, would say about the career impact? Feel free to put that in the chat or unmute and share. Awesome. I see Mary put in the chat, I never thought about a career in the Shenandoah Valley, but now I see it's possible. Awesome. So Mary, that's in part about like, hey, students envisioning themselves staying in the community and making an impact and having a thriving career in that community. Mary, do you want to share anything more about that?
Yeah, sure. So we're in a relatively rural area, but we have a ton of colleges and universities. There's actually 47,000 students among 12 colleges and universities that are here. And a lot of them are not from here. They come to school here and then they think they have to leave. They think there's no opportunities here. So it's exciting when we introduce them to the careers that are here and let them know that you don't have to leave if you like it here. It is possible to stay and have a good career here.
Love hearing that. Thanks for sharing that, Mary. And we actually, I didn't put this stat in here later, but we survey students after teamship on their likelihood to work for the business that they worked with. And we do a pre-post retrospective of they rate, okay, before teamship, how likely would I have been? And after teamship, how likely am I? And we see that growth big time, in part because of they get to learn about the business and explore it deeply and connect with someone from the business. And so this can be a good business retention opportunity of students in your area as well. Thanks, Mary. Anyone else want to share? What do you hope a student says as a result of what you offered?
I think it's important that these students are, getting opportunities to see what the expectations are, to make them career ready. So any
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to work on your career readiness, your professional communication, just
Mm-hmm.
those opportunities, students are getting out of school and they're just frankly not ready. They're not career ready when it comes to those basic, needs that these companies are having. So giving them
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to be exposed to companies and see what expectations are, whether it just be from, like I said, professional communication to
Mm-hmm.
office etiquette, any of those. So I think
Mm-hmm.
any opportunities like that to give students exposure is huge. So that's what I
Mm-hmm.
really like to see.
Love to hear it. Yeah, and professional communication is all part of the teamship experience as they're interviewing their business partner and leading meetings, as they're pitching solutions, but also having a really important Q&A at the end of it, where it's like a business meeting and discussing your ideas and the depths of those. So, yeah, appreciate you sharing that, Barb, and can make some more connections. And that's a good transition into, as Scott said earlier, preparing students with the power skills that they need for both the modern workforce, but also the next workforce, right? Whatever the world of work looks like with AI and automation coming in, what are those power or durable skills that they're going to need regardless? And the World Economics Forum's Future Job Report identifies many of these as the analytical thinking, resilience, social influence, creativity, and motivation. And these are some of the power skills that teamship focuses on as well. It's teamwork. How do you work in diverse teams, leverage different perspectives? Don't just shut down if someone has an alternative idea to your own. How do you influence others on something that you're passionate about? Many of these things that you see here, the resilience, the social influence, the motivation and self-awareness, are part of what we focus on developing in teamship. And problem solving. So seeing a problem and analytically thinking, breaking it down. What are you hearing the partner share? How is that impacting them? What have they tried so far that hasn't worked? And then the creative thinking. When you get to an ideating part, hey, how do we generate lots of possible solutions and then narrow those down to one solution? If we're narrowing down to one solution, what's a tool that we can use to get everyone's perspectives? Well, hey, Teamship has a tool for that. We have a decision matrix where they can put it all on a matrix and then determine, hey, what's the most high impact and low lift solution that the business can try tomorrow. And that's all part of the problem solving aspect of what Teamship focuses on. And we say it's easy to put students in a team and tell them to solve a problem, right? That's any of us could do that. We could find students and put them in a team. We could pose a problem or find a business and say, hey, business, pose a problem to these students. But the really challenging part of this is how do you help them get better at these power skills? And that's where I'll talk now about 3 special things about Teamship. The first one is coaching. We find that live observation of students at work and coaching them on what they're doing well and how to slightly modify what they're doing to work better in a team and to solve a problem is key. And that's what Teamship has to offer. And we have a training of educators. So any of your educators or staff can be trained on how to effectively observe teams at work and give them coaching feedback to help them get better at those power skills. And we also have a group of coaches who are experts at this to where we can have those coaches coach your students too. So I'll share more about that a little bit later, but live observation and coaching is a key pillar of the Teamship model. Next is that the Teamship model is also repeatable and flexible. So repeatable in that we have the structure of going through a design thinking process to understand the problem more deeply, identify key insights, ideate lots of solutions, narrow those down to create a prototype that the business can use to implement your solution, and test out the solutions, at least in a dress rehearsal with feedback before sharing with the business partner. So that's a core tenet of the Teamship framework with 3 different meeting points to where students are driving the meetings to interview the business partners toward the beginning, in a middle check-in, and then finally in the pitch event with a live Q&A with the partner. So direct interactive pieces with the partner themselves. And then of course, in the beginning and in between times is where they're learning tools, they're practicing, and they're receiving live observation and coaching from a certified coach, helping them get better at those power skills. It's also flexible in terms of Teamship can be done fully in person, can be done fully virtual, or hybrid, starting with like maybe an in-person launch and pitch event, but virtual meeting times in between. So many different ways it can happen. It's around 25 to 40 hours. So again, about the amount of time of a micro internship. And therefore you can squeeze that into 1 week. That's co-curricular, for example, over the summer, or UVA-wise is considering doing a mini, they have a mini portion where they can fit this in between semesters. Or you can do it between 4 and 6 weeks or a full semester course. It's very flexible to fit in a variety of different places. And the third special thing is that District C, we provide the industry partners for you. So we'll do the hard work of recruiting, onboarding the partner, and scoping the problem. In terms of recruiting, we take warm leads from your community, ask you like, who are the influencers, and then we'll talk to them in order to get industry connections. It's also great because it's only 5 hours of time for the business partner, and it's a structured experience. So as compared to some internships, they don't have to prepare a ton in terms of industry in order to participate. It's because of our framework, because of our coaches, because of the students leading the meetings. This is a low lift ask for a business partner, and therefore we can get tons of business partners into Teamship. And it's a great foot in the door for them to have a good experience with your students to potentially provide even more opportunities with your institution in the future. So this has happened in Lenore County, North Carolina, where a local business did teamship with students, and then created 8 paid internship opportunities for those students. So great foot in the door, not always guaranteed that the business will create something for them, but certainly an opportunity to build bridges and have them do meaningful work with your students. And any industry can participate. So we scope problems that are relevant from health professions to trades to accounting and finance, all kinds of different businesses. And in terms of value to businesses, 88% of business partners report in our surveys that they're more likely to consider a student for an internship or employment if they've done teamship. So from participating, from fielding powerful questions, from the students going through a rigorous framework to pitch solutions and communicate effectively, they see the value in this as a career preparation experience. So that's about teamship. Now I'm super excited to share about some of the fall outcomes. And again, in this, VTOP supported a pilot that happened, it was open to 4-year public institutions for this time and looking to expand audiences in the future. But just to get some data and some experiences out there. And so these students did a 5-week experience where they met for an hour and a half, 3 days a week after work hours, and pitch solutions fully virtually, collaborating with each other from across the state. And so here were some of the outcomes of that. We surveyed students afterwards, and this is a completely anonymous survey, so it's not tied to them. They're not worried about how do my answers affect our institution or myself. It was an average of 8.9 out of 10 in terms of how likely they are to recommend teamship to a peer. Right? This was an unpaid opportunity, but they see the value in developing their skills, getting connected to employers, having a safe space to learn how to work together and solve problems before going out into the workforce. And you see that here from an anonymous response saying, you sharpen your skills and build new ones. Even though I have a decent work history, I learned something new about other businesses and what it means to contribute to your community. So, love to see that. They recommend it. Now, how about their teamwork and problem solving skills that are a focus of teamship? Well, we asked them, hey, at the end, rate out of 5 your teamwork skills before and your teamwork skills now. And the averages grew from 2.9 to 4.3 in terms of their self-assessment of their ability to work in a team. You can see that here. Not only is teamship experience put on your resume, it gives you a chance to solve a real problem where you may have to work with people you aren't familiar with and be receptive that there are multiple outlooks on the same problem. Imagine that. A student showing up to a workforce knowing, hey, my way is not the highway. Also, my boss's way isn't necessarily the highway, right? I have valuable ideas that I can contribute. And when I'm working in a team, I want to listen to and be able to work with people I'm unfamiliar with. And teamship was a space for them to practice that. We asked the same question about their ability to solve complex problems. And that grew from a 3.4 to a 4.4. We attribute this to the design thinking framework and the coaching that they receive on how to stay in that understanding the problem and digging deeper, creating or coming up with key insights before creating a solution. And one student says, we worked with an actual CEO, solved real problems, and learned how consulting actually happens. It pushed us out of our comfort zones in a good way. Amazing. Now, in terms of the business aspect, we surveyed the business partners and they rated this at a 10 out of 10 in terms of how likely they are to spread this to others. They say it's a much needed experience for youth and community overall, from GISME. They also find value in the solutions that students gave forth. As 2 out of 2, both of them agreed that they're likely to use at least part of the solutions that students presented. And one of them actually said, I will absolutely use pieces of your presentation as we move into our next steps. Same with, we asked business partners in the survey how likely or about preparation for the workforce and how likely they are to hire students who have had teamship on their resume. And both agree that they would be more likely to hire students if they have teamship on their resume, saying, so inspired by the passion, work, and execution that's been put into this solution from James Doe at Innovate Hampton Roads. So in my last few minutes here, I want to share like a couple of ways in which you can adopt teamship if you're feeling so inspired by this pilot data and the student stories. So one thing is that there is going to be a spring 2025 teamship Virginia. VTOP will share more about who is qualified for this, but we just wanted to share that there will be a second pilot of this in the spring with 48 student spots. However, there are two ways that you can bring this to your institutions that you serve. One of those is to have them train their own faculty and staff to run teamship at their community colleges or universities, whatever it may be. And Marymount University is currently doing this as a internship for credit course. So they worked with the provost, created the course, sent instructors through our training, and are implementing this so that students get credit for this. And they can scale it faster because up to 12 students split into 3 teams of 4 can work with one business representative. So this is an easy way for them to scale their internship opportunities or project-based learning opportunities at the institution. And or we, District C, can run teamship programs for your students across multiple community colleges or your region, your any of that in general. And so I know that is something that others are looking into. So we're excited for both of these styles, where in the long term, you can build capacity and do this over and over again. And in the short term, hey, we can get things started just like we did with Teamship Virginia and run these effectively for your students. So at that, I know we have just a couple minutes left in the Teams chat, or if you want to unmute, I would welcome any questions at this point.
Hi, this is Eleanor from Northern Virginia Community College. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, hey, Eleanor.
Unfortunately, I'm out sick today, but I wanted to attend this session just to listen in. So, is this something that all schools have? Is this a sales pitch? I had to arrive late. I apologize for that.
Yes, no,
So-
it's a. Oh yeah, you want to go for it, Alicia?
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, Eleanor, thanks for joining the call. Hope you feel better as well. We
Thank you.
actually, Chev, actually partnered with Teamship, or District C rather, to help with these expanded work-based learning definitions. There's more information to come. We have adopted work-based learning definitions that the SB 1280 work group, and we'll talk more about that. So I don't want to spring something on you that's very new. And one thing that we've learned in the visits with Chev to other institutions, and what we also heard from students, is that all of them can't really necessarily participate in a traditional internship. A couple years ago, maybe like 2 years ago, we learned a little bit more about District C here at Chev. In our previous approach for the regional collaboratives, one of the institutions that actually implemented this in their actual RFP proposal was ODU. They actually implemented the fact that they would integrate some level of operating some of these teamship workshops within the region. And in addition, another one of our regional institutions actually also adopted it as well. So it got a lot of traction. The students received really great feedback from the employers. The employers really enjoyed the engagement efforts of it. And in fact, I also shared this teamship pilot in a stakeholder meeting that Barbara was also in that stakeholder meeting with, some of the legislators from the budget and House and Senate Finance and VEDP and other stakeholders across the state. It's a joint stakeholder that we facilitate with in partnership with VEDP on a quarterly basis, and it received a lot of great feedback. And in fact, and this is new news to Ben, it received a lot of great feedback because they felt like this model was a model that could really serve various populations. And so we thought that this was an ideal approach to help support students in gaining some level of work-based learning experiences and still having a way to connect with employers and gaining, their power skills, in lieu of the fact that many of them can't participate in a traditional internship. So it's not a pitch, it's just an opportunity to share another avenue that VTOP or Chev is approaching, and other institutions are adopting this practice. And like Ben mentioned, Marymount implemented it, went through the training, and they implemented it in some of their degree programs. And then there are other institutions that, Ben has met with and I have met with them, even the VCCS system that's really looking at it, because a lot of them are saying that we're in a rural area. There's not enough opportunities for our students. Here's one solution that could possibly benefit a lot of our students and employers. They still get an opportunity to meet with an employer, engage with an employer, and gain some level of these power skills that's needed for employment. But that's a great question. Ben, did you want to add to it?
Yeah. Yeah, Alicia, that was great. Appreciate the partnership approach there. Yeah, and Eleanor, in terms of like, if you're thinking, hey, like, what? Wait, actually, how do I bring this to my students? The fall and spring Teamship Virginia pilots are funded by VTOP, with the fall one being for the 4-year publics and the spring one TBD on full audience. In terms of the other ways that I've shared of, hey, you can train your own faculty to bring this to your campus, or we can run other programs for you. We do a fee for service at District C. And so what I would recommend is, and I'm going to put this in the chat, fill out this quick form and I'll schedule time with you to chat about it. And we can go through, hey, what are your goals? And I can potentially recommend like which type of model might you use to, if you're interested, to bring this to your students or to your region, and any fees for that. So that, yeah, we can, if you want to expand this to others, we can find avenues for that.
Got it. So just to summarize, because I'm new to Nova and there are a lot of acronyms that everyone assumes people know, but it sounds like this is going to be paid for 4 years, not for community colleges, but I could schedule a call to learn more about opportunities and pricing.
Kind of, but there
Eh,
are two pilots that are paid for. That's not necessarily ongoing. This is just to get, regional experiences and students impacted. But for the future, if you're saying, hey, I'm liking what I'm hearing, like let's explore how I bring this to my institution or my region, then let's have a conversation and we can figure out like the best way to be able to do that for your students.
So Eleanor, you can help with promoting this for the Teamship Virginia for the 48 slots that Ben just talked about for the region. That's one avenue. The other avenue, as Ben mentioned, is a regional approach, just like in the previous regional collaborative that we had. ODU hosted a regional teamship where students from within their region actually participated in this teamship approach. So if there's an opportunity for your other institutions to maybe engage in that and want to participate in that, that's another approach. Or if you want teamship to be adopted individually at your institution, as mentioned, like Marymount, and then there's some other institutions that are looking at it being adopted within their institution. That's another avenue. But we can, kind of walk you through on what that looks like. I know you said you're new to this and to Nova, but we can help walk you through that. And Ben does a great job on doing that.
Okay, I look forward to learning more. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thanks, Eleanor. All right. Thank you all. Turn it back over to you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it. And it's such a great opportunity coming from a small institution at Radford University. I mean, this is such great opportunities for students that can't do your typical internship. And if you have an opportunity to attend a pitch event, I know some of our team got to, go through the training with District C to be a coach, but it's different doing that pitch event and watching the students. I mean, they were amazing. And one of the breakout sessions that I did with Gimsey, I mean, he's talking about moving or coming to Virginia to start, his company in Virginia. So that's a win-win for students and bringing employers to Virginia. So great opportunity. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Amy and Jesse, and they will talk to us. They are from Merck, and so they're going to talk to us a little bit more about the compass and stakeholders. I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. And can you see my slides now? Or see my screen? Yes, okay, good. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good week. I don't know if you're in the snow zone, but we're getting ready for the snow. My kids are very excited. All right, so yes, I'm Jesse Seneschal, and I'm the Executive Director of the Institute for Collaborative Research and Evaluation, which is affiliated with Merck. We recently started as a kind of expansion of Merck, but we've been working with VTOP for several years now, and we're going to share a little bit of the work we've done, especially focused on the question of building effective collaboratives through stakeholder engagement. Let me get next slide up here. So the goals for the session today, I'm going to just give a little bit of an introduction to ICER and the work that we've done with the VTOP. Talk specifically about a tool called the Collaboration Compass that we developed as a resource out of some prior work with VTOP. And then we're going to dive into a couple of the tools within the Collaboration Compass that are about developing stakeholder groups and supporting relationship building within collaboratives, or your ILPs. And we're going to leave you with a specific tool, which is a checklist for developing effective meeting agendas, which might be useful to you in these early phases. So I'm going to start a little bit with the development. We're going to talk about a work-based learning ecosystem today, talk a little bit about partnerships as collaborative initiatives, the background on the compass. And the second part of this presentation today, we have about half an hour, is going to be an activity and discussion. So you can look forward to that. So the evaluation of VTOP, this is the first work we did with them. This was back from July of 2023. We worked with Alicia and the VTOP team to develop a systems change model, which really looked at VTOP as the statewide network of collaboratives that are working at regional levels, and tried to understand what the role of the state initiative is in supporting more work-based learning opportunities, but also better work-based learning opportunities. So that was our first initial work. And then we also did a lit review. And in a second, I'm going to drop in the chat a link to this. But this was a lit review around work-based learning, both at the PK-12, but also higher ed level. And there's a lot of great resources in there about what research has said related to work-based learning. We also did, as part of this landscape review, initial review of data sources and measures for evaluating a VTOP systems change initiative. So we were looking at all the sources of data and trying to think, if we're to look at how VTOP can measure its impact, here are possible sources for that data, some of it being state data, some of it being institutional data. And so that was a report that we put out. And then finally, the collaboration compass, which I mentioned already. And Amy will be talking more about this in just a minute. But let's see. Okay, so the work-based learning ecosystem. So as you know, the new iteration of VTOP is really centered on the Jobs for the Future framework, and this is from the RFP. You can see the cycle here of career awareness, exploration, preparation. This was some of what Ben presented and Scott also referenced. And what we know is that the SHEV side of VTOP is really focused on the awareness, exploration, and preparation part, and the experience part is going to be done in partnership with VEDP. Although we know that there's going to need to be a lot of collaboration because the experiences that folks have within their internships are going to be really supported at the institution level through reflection, through the preparation part, all of these pieces. To understand, and so this is the sort of the guiding framework for you all's work at the institutional level. One of the ways that we think about this and to think about like what does this like look like in practice is to think around like an individual student's journey along work-based learning. And so this is just a story that we developed around a student named Maria. And you can think about the awareness phase. So Maria, a college student, attends a panel of recent graduates at a university career day. She's intrigued by one graduate with a major similar to her own, who talked about how her job shadowing and micro internship participation helped her learn about a regional career pathway. The awareness sparks her interest, leads to exploration. So Maria contacts her career services center. Center staff introduce her to the VTOP curriculum to help her develop career readiness skills. They also help her identify and apply for micro internship opportunity she can participate in alongside her courses. And then the exploration leads to preparation. The micro internship dovetails with Maria's interests. She's eager for additional exposure, so she works with career services staff to identify some related project-based experiences. Career preparation continues. After those experiences, Maria is ready to start defining her career pathway and exploring potential post-graduation opportunities within the career service staff help her learn how to search for and identify appropriate job opportunities within the region. And then Maria talks with the professors about the coursework that can help her acquire additional skills. Career services staff help her reflect on the skills and she has gained and learned how to present them on her resume. With the support, she works out a plan for achieving her career goals. And that is just one part of the journey, and it's not a linear journey. The cycle continues, and and you can see on the Jobs for the framework it's a circular path, and that's something we have to recognize as well. So Maria investigates other work-based learning opportunities and participates in paid internship, continuing to hone her skills, her career readiness skills. Throughout the process, career services staff direct her to resources and help her reflect on her experiences and evolving skills and interests. So this is when we think about the individual student, but we also know that this happens within an ecosystem. And so you can see the steps of the Jobs for the framework, Jobs for the Future framework here, the awareness, exploration, preparation, expertise, leading to these individual outcomes. Students are more prepared for entry into the workforce. But the system that happens within includes all the work-based learning programs and services designed to move individuals through a progression of steps. And so when we think about what is the ecosystem, we can think about all of the institutions and organizations that need to be connected and communicating. So this includes, as early as PK-12 education, there's career technical education and all sorts of work happening in the PK-12 space. But more relevant to VTOP are the institutions of higher ed, which you all are representing, universities, colleges, community colleges. Also the hosting organizations, whether that's business and industry or nonprofit or government. And then also all the facilitative organizations that have an interest in this, including, chambers of commerce, business and nonprofit support organizations, workforce development organizations, community organizations, et cetera. And the challenge with this is that when you have a lot of different organizations working together, they all might have a common goal, but there also is potential for misalignment and failed connections and weaknesses in communication. And I think Scott used the metaphor of like, we want to make this less friction here. We want it to be a smoother pathway. And so when you think about what VTOP does, what is VTOP? VTOP is an innovative initiative designed to enhance work-based learning across Virginia. It's a collaborative effort that bridges education and employment sectors, bringing together agencies, institutions, businesses, and nonprofits to drive systemic change. It operates regionally, and this is an important part of it, leveraging local strengths while aligning with the state's overarching vision, resources, and guidelines. And finally, it aims to create a robust work-based learning ecosystem that supports students throughout their educational journeys and prepares them for careers, fosters the readiness of students, employers, and institutions to participate in work-based learning, and strengthens the Commonwealth's economy. So when you think about that ecosystem that I showed with all the different sort of sectors that are on there, that's going to exist no matter what. VTOP comes in and tries to make it all work better. That's sort of that's the goal of VTOP, is to make it work better for the students, so that all those pathways or all the experiences that students have through the cycle are more seamless and more impactful. And Ben's work doing the talking about the teamship, that was a great example of that, where you have like these a really well structured work-based learning experience that's really going to, as you can see from his data, impact the students and make them more more prepared for their future work opportunities. And so what's the role of the institutional led partnerships in this work? Well, it's to promote regional collaboration and coordination by engaging with stakeholders, so getting all those sectors to work together, to be at the table together, and in that to define a regional vision and strategy, making sure that their practices are aligned with the mission of SHEV at VTOP and SHEV's council members. So you're doing the regional work, but you're also aligning it to the state initiative, and fostering connections between higher ed institutions and regional employers. The purpose of the collaboration is what we're trying to do is extend and broaden SHEV and VTOP central office efforts, expand work-based learning opportunities within the region and through collaboration with institutions and organizations, and also support institutions in preparing students, faculty, and staff for success. So this is the preface to a discussion we want to have, and really the focus of the discussion is again around this question of stakeholder engagement. What the work that you're doing is about looking at that ecosystem and thinking around who are all the partners that need to be at the table for our ecosystem and within our region to be as effective as possible. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Amy to talk a little bit about the Collaboration Compass, which is a tool designed for this purpose.
Thanks, Jesse. Hi, everybody, and thanks to the VTOP team for inviting us to present today. I'm Amy Corning. I'm the Senior Research Associate at ICER, and I've been working on the VTOP project along with Jesse throughout the whole time with Alicia. So we know that the collaboration side of partnership work can be really challenging. And some of the research that we carried out helped us to understand the challenges for the VTOP regional groups. So what we did was to kind of combine the findings from our research with what we know about best practices for collaborative groups in order to create this Collaboration Compass resource. And what it includes is some general principles and guidance that support collaboration, specific examples of practices, some tools and activities that will support stakeholder recruitment, engagement, and the partnerships more generally. And it's designed for VTOP and for VTOP's regional work, but it's also general enough so that the ILPs should be able to tailor it further to meet their needs. And on the next slide, I just want to give you a little bit of background on how we developed the Compass. We carried out 44 interviews with different individuals who were involved in various roles and different capacities with the VTOP initiative, but most of them were members or had some connection to the VTOP regional collaboratives. And again, those were the predecessors to the what are now the ILPs. Our analysis of that interview data led us to develop some recommendations, or what we called principles, that provide guidance for regional groups working on work-based learning. And then we designed some tools to support the application of the principles and to promote dialogue and collaboration within stakeholder groups. So our next step on the next slide was to carry out what we called a user experience study that helped us refine the compass. And for that, we conducted guided conversations with VTOP project staff members from the regional collaboratives who shared their screens as we asked them to carry out tasks, and we asked them questions as they worked with the collaboration compass. We then took all of that information and used it to revise and further refine the compass in order to develop a resource that would be really user-friendly and tuned to the way that project staff members were likely to be using it. The next step, which is the part we're working on now, is to update that resource for the institution-led partnerships. So the goal is to just bring it in line with VTOP's new organization of effort on the work-based learning initiatives, and to kind of match the slightly revised role of the ILPs relative to what were previously regional collaboratives. And that revised version should be ready early next year. And just to give you a quick preview of its structure, there are the two major sections: the principles, which kind of outline the guidance, and then the toolkit, which is, you know, kind of a combination of workbook and then, as I said, tools that the stakeholder groups can use. Within each of those major sections, there are three what we call core areas. And these core areas are really central to the work of any collaborative initiative. So they are goal development, alignment, and commitment, and then stakeholder group member recruitment and engagement, which we'll be talking about further. And the last one is governance structure and processes for the partnership. As Jesse mentioned, we have a little activity to introduce some ideas from the compass, but I want to just stop here and ask if you have any questions at this point. Okay. Well, for this activity, we wanted to just kind of share a few principles with you that relate to stakeholder group member recruitment. And on the next slide, just kind of outline some of our goals for this activity to help you kind of consider some principles for stakeholder group recruitment and engagement, and to think about how those principles are either illustrated or in some cases undermined by certain practices, and to consider the effects that those practices might have on stakeholder members, stakeholder group members' expectations, their experience, and their sense of commitment to the ILP. And we want to give you an opportunity to share some of your own insights and ideas. So as we look at some of the principles and a few examples, you might kind of reflect on how they resonate in the context of your institution-led partnerships, and also think about any additional practices or ideas that you have to support stakeholder recruitment and engagement. And we'll have a little time to talk about your thoughts and reactions. On the next slide, the format is the same for this group of slides, so I will just take a minute to explain it. The principles are shown on the left-hand side, and then there are some real-life examples on the right. And all of the quotations that you'll see on the right-hand side come from those research interviews I mentioned. So again, they're from participants who have been directly involved with the VTOP regional groups. Looking at the principles on the left, there are two types where you see the blue compass icons and the text in bold, like that first item under the principles heading on the left. Those are general foundational directions or guidelines. When you see the orchid or the magenta tiny signpost icon, those flag more actionable steps and strategies that fall under each of the foundational guidelines. And they provide more practical guidance to help with implementing the general principle. These are just a few selected principles related to stakeholder group recruitment and engagement, not all of them. And the principles stay the same throughout this activity, so I'll read them just on this first slide. The first general principle is to ensure that recruitment practices foster equity and inclusivity across all member groups. And a practical recommendation for working toward that equity and inclusivity is to develop recruitment guidelines emphasizing diverse institutional and organizational representation and member roles. And a foundational principle, cultivate conditions that empower all members to engage equitably and effectively, and to do that in part by building a culture of transparency, inclusiveness, and trust by encouraging open discussions that amplify all voices and advance collaboration. On the right-hand side, again, are quotes from our participant. And in this case, the participant described a helpful strategy saying, I think making sure there's ample representation from multiple institutions and multiple organizations was really important, making sure that all institutions and organizations were included. And another example of a positive practice was someone said, we regularly ask the question, who is not in this discussion that should be? We might have missed someone within the region that should be involved, not intentionally, but we try to catch up with that early on and identify that. And a third one, the project staff did reach out and understand that I was from a particular type of institution. That's huge, making sure they are involving everyone. My type of institution are less respected in certain cases. And I think that those issues related to the differential status and prestige of institutions and organizations will be something that's important for the ILPs to address carefully. The next couple of slides show what we called opportunities for learning. And these are examples of practices that were not helpful in supporting the principles. So this person said, I remember seeing something sent out at the last minute in a newsletter about the regional collaborative having an event at an institution inviting all businesses to please attend. And she says, I was left with a feeling of who can we get there at the last minute? And the next one is maybe because a lot of us already knew each other really well, it did seem like the regional collaborative membership was a little more weighted toward higher ed. And I always wondered if that was a frustration for the others that were more regional people. And by regional people here, the participant is referring to representatives from economic development partnerships, chambers of commerce, professional associations, and so on. And the last one, after I joined, I would have liked somebody reaching out with a phone call to talk about the collaborative's goals and purpose, rather than me jumping in the sixth lap. There's got to be a way for someone to provide some background understanding for new members. So at this point, we want to open it up to you, and we just have a few questions to kind of prompt your thinking. What practices is your ILP considering that reflect some of these principles? And do you have other practices in mind that could strengthen stakeholder group recruitment and engagement? And finally, how does your regional context affect how you might think about implementing some of these principles? So you can jump in with any of those, or of course, any general responses or reactions to the principles or to the quotes that I shared.
So I know this might be fairly new for some of the ILPs on the call, and some of them serve as PIs versus the individuals that are really on the ground. So and I don't want to overstep, but I feel like they're more in a phase of really kind of thinking through these processes. And this the principles that you outlined kind of help them, maybe give them some thought on how they could approach this. And maybe we could ask, any reflection thoughts around what you shared from the previous lessons learned from the regions that maybe, I know Mary was from the previous region, that maybe we could offer any thoughts or feedback from what they've heard to what they could possibly do in the future. And Barb has her hand up. Thanks, Barb.
No, no problem. I'm coming from a pretty interesting perspective because I actually started over at CPD, which has been awarded the grant, but now I've moved over to CT, which is the Center for Economic and Community Engagement, and I'm just providing temporary support. So I've kind of got my hand in a couple pots, but I think it's important. My philosophy always is the separation is in the preparation. And so I just scrapped everything that was given to me from the old. And I started a new spreadsheet, literally, that has like 6 different tabs. And I've got all of our Region 2 partners that I've started, where I've just started listing names and how we were related. Basically, it's just all of our institutions in our entire region, and I've got the websites to then start building contacts out from each one of those. And then I've got the VTOP regional partners, I've got education institutions, I've got secondary education institutions, I've got workforce and ed orgs, and then I've got nonprofits and community. So those each have a tab in a spreadsheet that I've just started building from. My next step is I'm planning to then reach out to these partners with a survey and, really just build what their engagement level is. Because, we can't move forward without knowing, we can't make people participate, but we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate. So that's where I'm starting from scratch pretty much. And so I'm just kind of sharing that philosophy, or I don't know if that is any insight to anyone else, but I don't want to miss anybody. So that's kind of where I've started our process down here in Region 2.
Yes, I like your approach of really casting a wide net. And I think trying to be as inclusive as possible from the very beginning is crucial for just setting the tone of how the collaboration will unfold. The other thing I'd say is that all of the work that you're doing to kind of identify and document potentially relevant organizations comes up, will be valuable at later points too, in terms of kind of knowledge management within the collaborative. And so as you're developing those materials, thinking about ways to share them, to update them with the stakeholder group members will be important as well.
I see that we're close on time here, and so I'm going to go ahead, and we had more discussions to have, but we can hopefully have those in another meeting. We had another set of another activity around practices for meeting design to strengthen the partnership, and it was a similar set of principles and positive examples, and we'll share these slides with you so you can take a look at this. Yeah. We also have a handout that goes along with this that will, are we going to drop that in the chat, or are we going to mail that out, Amy?
Well, I'll send everything to Alicia
okay.
And Carolyn afterwards, and then they can make sure it gets to the right people.
Yeah, and just the,
sounds good.
We had thought about one more discussion, but I don't know we necessarily have time for it. But just really broadly, we're really interested in hearing what you all, as new ILP leaders, what do you see as the key challenges for ILPs? What have you encountered so far? What additional challenges do you anticipate? And what are your needs for professional development and other support? And the reason that this is important right now is because on our side, from the VCU ICER side, we really want to have those questions in mind when we're revising the collaboration compass to make sure that the collaboration compass is tuned to the needs that you all have right now, and also inform VTOP about needs for professional development support. So communication early around challenges is going to be really important. Yeah, and from today's session, like we said, we're going to share the slides, and we have a handout that we've developed from the Collaboration Compass that we'll send that along. And then again, there's going to be the revised version of the Collaboration Compass available in early 2026. So I think we have about 10 minutes left, and I was trying to stick to the agenda. Should I pass it back over to Carolyn or Alicia, or any more discussion? Not sure what you all had to close out here.
You definitely, if you need to take a few more minutes, we're just going to close it out once you finish it. So definitely
Okay.
need to cover anything else.
Well, then let me just go back to this slide for 1 second and see if any of you want to weigh in on these questions. What are some of the challenges that you've encountered or that you anticipate with the initiation of your ILPs?
I guess I just have one quick question is maybe, anticipating not hearing back from some institutions. So, what have you done to get them to engage? We can't make them participate. We hope they would, but you've got, maybe there's like a set of community colleges that are feeling underrepresented. So we want to bring them in, but we can't get them to, I'm just using that, any institution as an example, but how, are there any advice you would give, or what do you do to draw these people into their groups in to make sure that they get involved?
That's a great question with a complicated answer, but yes, yeah. I see, Barbara, you also have your hand up, but we will think about that with the Collaboration Compass for sure.
Well,
Barbara?
I just I wanted to respond to your question so that you kind of know where we're coming at ODU. So this is a new grant period, a new structure for us, new leadership. I'm in this part where I'm trying to onboard and get a new program coordinator in. So you always have that transition from the way we did things for 3 years and the way that things will start to go in 2026, right? So we've got this huge lift up, and even VTOP has sort of change the way that they are engaging training for us. And, there's a retreat in January, so just that transition for everyone who was a member of the previous collaboration, right? And then how we're going to do this collaboration this time around. I would say probably the biggest challenges are, number one, communication, really, helping this group of very diverse folks from very different institutions come together and really see this institutional lead network as something that's valuable to them, as something that they want to show up for that monthly meeting, right? And sometimes that can be really complicated by the fact that in Region 5 here in Hampton Roads, we have institutions at really, really different places when it comes to work-based learning. And so, how do you offer content that is going to be applicable to everyone, right? And so that you can maintain and sustain persistence and, collaboration and partnership. And so, so those are just some of the things, our challenges as we start in. We still have a ways to go, but we're excited for it here at ODU, and being well organized, well administratively, moving so that everybody is getting correct information in a consistent way, some of those basics that we all want as we do our job. So so that's what we're working for feverishly on the ground, trying to get our structure together so that we can do a launch and really engage Region 5.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think in part your question around like how do you get goals aligned, I think that's kind of a response to Barb, what you brought up, which is like I think the way that you get folks engaged is to help them see that this is going to be of benefit. This is going to help them meet their needs. You can't force them to participate, but if they can see that there's value in it, there's a value proposition of engagement with VTOP is going to make our work more successful, is going to make our students more successful. But making that pitch is not easy. And you also, I think, also recognizing the, that the barriers to participation and engagement are many and different across institutions as well. So, there's all sorts of things to consider. A lot of that is, I think, addressed in some of the, the principles that we have in our collaboration compass. But I'm excited to share more of that with you all as we continue our work together.
The other thing I would say is just it takes time, and it takes time to build trust, and it's the trust and the gradual kind of cumulative feeling that this is an initiative of value that is going to do the greatest work in terms of getting people to participate. So it may take some exposure before folks are really willing to make a commitment.
Okay, any final thoughts on these questions around challenges before we pass it back to the VTOP team?
This was helpful for us too on that. Thank you on that.
Great.
The feedback.
Yeah. All right.
Right. Well, thank you all so much for attending today's session, and to our phenomenal partners. I know we had our Executive Director, Scott Fleming, who was here earlier, who represented SHEB, and to our District C partner, as well as Merck. We thank you all so much for those comprehensive presentations that you provided for us. And as I think Dr. Barbara Blake mentioned it earlier, we're on the front lines, right? We're on the front lines looking for strategic and innovative ways to really elevate the work that we're doing in this particular space. To support all of our students, as we mentioned earlier, and to engage with our stakeholders across the state. So thank you all so much for giving us this feedback and these presentations that we could take with us on our journey through the work-based learning space. So thank you so much for the partnership, and we look forward to working with you in this space moving forward. And so as we're wrapping up our conversation today, I just want to provide you all with some really quick reminders that we've been sharing over the last couple of weeks. Please be reminded that we do have our 2-day in-person training here in Richmond, Virginia on January the 14th and 15th. This will be required for our PIs and coordinators. And then just another kind of just quick reminder, as you all are in the process of hiring your coordinators, I know that we have some regions who are still working on that. Please don't forget to share those job descriptions with myself or Carolyn so that we can review those before they are actually posted to your job platforms or your websites. And please don't forget to, as much as possible, include us in that process, because we also want to make sure that we're serving on your interview panels as well. And just as a reminder, Carolyn supports regions 1 through 3 and 8 and 9, and I support regions 4 through 7. As you're thinking about hiring your coordinator as well, ideally, we would want that to happen sooner rather than later, because I already mentioned the training that we're going to have in January. So ideally, we would want those coordinators to be in attendance, because our goal is to support you and to just make sure that those coordinators are equipped and they're ready to really execute the responsibilities of the grant. And then I'll say finally is the implementation plan. Courtney at our last meeting mentioned that particular plan is due January 30th. So if you have any questions about that plan, please reach out to us. I know Courtney was offering office hours that you can attend. And if you can't attend those, feel free to email her or us, and we'll be more than happy to kind of support you in that particular process. I think, as we've said in this particular space today, we are here to support you. You are not out there alone. You have all of us. And like our name suggests, institutional-led partners. We are partners in this process. So please reach out. If you ever have questions, if you're feeling frustrated, if there's some challenges or concerns, please reach out to us. We are there to work collaboratively with you. So again, thank you so much for coming out to this space today. We appreciate your time, and we look forward again to supporting you along this journey. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. I know that Carolyn is going to be sending out the information in regards to all of the information you received today, as well as the recording. So please look forward to that. Again, if you need anything, let us know. We're here to support you. Thank you all so much, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.